Nope, I'm muted now. But we're gonna get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's training session presented to you by the Carroll Center for the Blind and hosted by Easter Seals, Massachusetts. The training is being funded through the Federal Assistive Technology Act. My name is Sarah Parker. I'm the program manager of the Assistive Technology Regional Centers at Easter Seals, Massachusetts. The ATRCs, hosted by Easter Seals, are lending libraries of assistive technology. Easter Seals offers device demonstrations at 2 locations. We're in Worcester and Boston. We have an extensive lending library of assistive technology devices. Residents of Massachusetts can visit our centers to learn about, try, and borrow AT free of charge. Thousands of devices are available to promote increased independence and attainment of goals for communication, education, vision, and more. You can create a free user account and search our inventory at the web address. It's massability.at, the number 4, all.com. You can also call us for further information at 617-226-2634. I will moderate today's session, which is on accessibility for testers. We thank you for joining us for this informative presentation today. And some brief housekeeping before we begin. CART transcription is available. Closed captioning are available by clicking the caption button at the bottom of the screen. If you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A section. These questions will be answered by the panelists as time allows. The training will be recorded and available for viewing at your convenience. There will be a brief survey available at the end of the session, which we would appreciate if you could complete and give us some insight to allow us to create presentations of interest to you in the future. And now, please allow me to introduce you to our presenters, Louis and Colleen, who will get us started.
Thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Louis Doe. With me is my colleague and fellow accessibility professional, Colleen Gorman. We're presenting this on behalf of the Carroll Center for the Blind, as Sarah just said. The Carroll Center for the Blind offers services for blind and low vision. We're located in Newton, Massachusetts, but we also offer remote programs. Thank you to everybody for attending. Thank you to Easter Seals and Massability for putting on these sessions and letting us be here. So without further ado, let's begin. So, we're on the first slide, and as I said, and as Sarah had said, this is accessibility for testers. So let's go into what we'll be discussing today. We'll be talking about who accessibility affects and why it matters, the role of accessibility testers, need to know laws and regulations, certifications for accessibility professionals. Yes, accessibility is a growing and thriving field, and folks have expertise, so there are certifications for that. Need to know tools and assistive technologies. And then we have a tools and resources slide at the end for you folks, so you can do further learning and research post presentation and as you see fit. So, who does accessibility affect and why it matters? Accessibility affects everyone. It's a there's a bit of a scale, the as I like to think about it. It's nice to have for some folks. For some folks, it's crucial to have, but they can find alternative workarounds. And for others, it's an absolute necessity. So, as somebody who works for the Carroll Center for the Blind, who is also blind, I use a screen reader. And if I didn't have a screen reader, I would never be able to operate any electronic devices, computers, smartphones, things like that. Some populations that accessibility impacts are folks who are blind, low vision, cognitive disabilities, deaf or hard of hearing, motor disabilities, and aging populations. So, fun fact, according to the World Health Organization, 1.3 billion people globally, or 16%, uh, have a disability. In 2022, 70 million, over 70 million of adults in the United States reported that they have a disability, and that was from the CDC, Center for Disease Control. So I'm sure we all, if you're new to the field, the question you may be asking is, what is exactly an accessibility tester? So an accessibility tester is somebody who evaluates digital products to make sure that they can be used by people with disabilities. Their primary role consists of testing websites, mobile apps, and software. They use both automated methods and manual tools and techniques to identify and document barriers. They conduct testing with assistive technologies because that's a crucial part of that process. Part of that documentation process, as they're finding these barriers, is to recommend how these barriers can be solved by other folks on the team, like developers and designers. And accessibility testers collaborate with many different departments and roles in the organizations. As I said, developers and designers, product teams, product stakeholders, um, anybody who is working on the product to drive the product to be used widely by folks. And the accessibility tester, their role is to make sure that accessibility is considered as part of that process and isn't forgotten by the wayside. They may work with real users with disabilities to conduct testing and gather feedback. A lot of a big part of their work, when done correctly, is that they help organizations avoid legal risks and comply with the law. They contribute to creating inclusive experiences that benefit all users, not just users with disabilities. That whole idea of accessibility being a nice to have for some, but a necessity for others. All right, let's talk a little bit about some fun legal uh, regulations here. So need to know laws and regulations. So we have the elephant in the room, the regulation or the set of guidelines that started it all, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. You may hear it referred to as WCAG or WCAG. And these criteria as set up by WCAG is a set of universally recognized standards to achieve accessibility conformance. There are three levels to WCAG: level A, level AA, and level AAA. AA is the generally accepted level that if an organization's using WCAG, then they would measure against AA to make sure that their content and their materials meet AA standards. Um, some legislations that are modeled after WCAG is Section 508. That's a United States regulation that states that all federal, that's the key word there, federal electronic content needs to meet WCAG 2.0 level AA. Recently, the Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act came into effect, and that states that all state and local uh, government electronic content needs to meet WCAG 2.1 level AA, and there's a timeline for that. There's a 2 to 3 year timeline for that. So if you're working for a state or local government, I hope some plans are in place to make sure that electronic content and materials will be meeting WCAG guidelines, level 2.1 AA. Recently, effective as of June 28th, 2025, is the European Accessibility Act. Um, this legislation um, primarily deals with organizations doing business in the EU, in the European Union. But since we live in a global world, hopefully we'll get some positive trickle down effect here, even in the States. So the European Accessibility Act, it's more complicated than this, of course, because legislations always are. But in a nutshell, all products and services need to be accessible. Some of examples are of those are TVs, smartphones, gaming consoles, computers, ticket vending machines, websites, and mobile apps. So, if you are somebody with a motor disability who can't operate a traditional remote, um, your TV still needs to be accessible to you, right? Um, Buying train tickets, using kiosk vending machines, things like that, so you can travel independently. Websites and mobile apps are, I think, a obvious given because we use websites and mobile apps all the time. And people with disabilities play games, so gaming consoles and need to be accessible, and they use computers for work and personal life needs, and those devices need to be accessible as well. All right, let's talk about certifications. This is broken up into two slides here, slide 6 and slide 7. As I said before, accessibility is a real field. People get certified to do this work. People are paid to do this work. So if you need some testing to be done, please compensate people, pay people fairly, and uh, and help grow the field of accessibility. So, like with any industry, there's an organization, right? So, one comes to mind. Um, Actors have the Screen Actors Guild, and writers have the Screenwriters Guild. So, accessibility has a similar organization for accessibility professionals, and that organization is the International Association for Accessibility Professionals. Yes, all these acronyms are very long. And so the letters for that is IAAP. The foundational accessibility certification, the certification that shows that you have a broad understanding of disability, accessibility, and universal design, is the Certified Professional uh, Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies, CPACC. Um, so that's your foundational certification. The next level up from that is the Web Accessibility Specialist, and folks who pass the Web Accessibility Specialist certification, um, they demonstrate that they have had experience and knowledge remediating accessibility barriers within code. So they don't necessarily need to write code or do any of the coding, but they understand how the more technical nuances of things work. And then there's the third level, which is the CPWA, or Certified Professional in Web Accessibility. And that certification signifies that that individual has passed both the CPACC and the WAS certifications. All right, part two of our certifications. Uh, there, there's another certification called the Accessible Document Specialist, or ADS, and folks who are accessibility document specialists, they of course still work in the digital field because electronic documents, but their primary role is with documents. So somebody who's a web access specialist may be working with websites, and a certified accessible document specialist ADS primarily are working with the electronic documents. So think of PDFs, Microsoft Word documents, EPUB books, things like that. This next certification here may be slightly out of bounds, but I thought it would be useful to mention nonetheless. It's the CPABE, Certified Professional in Accessible Built Environments. These folks evaluate physical spaces and, of course, give recommendations for steps for remediation if necessary for physical uh, environments. So, are the doorways wide enough? Are there ramps for wheelchair users? Are there braille signage for folks who are blind and read braille? Is the wording and print on the signs legible for folks who are low vision? And I'm sure there are many, many more considerations, but those are some of the ones that I could think of at the moment. And certify C certified professional in accessible built environments. Um, that certification and that route may be useful for folks who are or maybe overwhelmed by digital accessibility, or you just prefer to work in a more physical, tangible space, which is an absolutely fair way to go. And we need more accessible built environments and physical spaces. So all IAAP certifications last for 3 years. You have two ways to renew them. You can retake the exams again. Keep in mind that every so often the content of the exams are updated. So you may have to do some studying. Or you can earn what are called continuing um, education credits, or what they call keeks or cakes. continuing education credits. And these continuing education credits can be earned by attending webinars, going to conferences, you writing or authoring materials on accessibility, and all of this has to be done outside of work. So let's say if I um, did something awesome at the Carroll Center to increase accessibility, I can't count that for my continuing education credits. Um, I have to show some work and participation on with accessibility outside of my work. There's also the Section 508 Trusted Tester certification. This is a certification ran and charged by the Department of Homeland Security, and they teach you how to the steps they want you to take to test federal electronic content based on Section 508. And yeah, if you have a government contract or you want to work with the government, that's a very handy certification to have. So need to know tools and assistive technologies. We have automated testing tools. We have screen readers. We have magnification programs. Keyboard consideration for keyboards and keyboard only users. Speech recognition, eye gaze technology, switch devices, and we won't be able to go into all of these, but we'll touch on more specifics around these technologies um, in the latter half of this presentation. Let's talk a little bit about automated tools here. Automated tools catches about approximately 70% of errors. The remaining 30% is for the manual accessibility tester defined. That's why you should hire manual accessibility testers. Um, Automated tools can and quite often do return false positives. So, like for example, it can tell you, oh, that's a wrong heading. But if a manual tester is looking at it, they can refute that claim from the automated tool. Or automated tools can do things like it can tell you, oh, there's no alt text, but it can't tell you how to fix the alt text. Well, maybe it will with the inclusion of AI, but who ultimately can say if that alt text is good or bad? It's going to be up to a real world user or an accessibility tester. So accessibility automated tools may look tempting, may look like a great proposition at the beginning, but the added value really lies in having an expert on your team who's doing this work. So let's talk about the importance of assistive technologies. Like, why do we care, right? It's a link for many people to the digital world. For some, it represents the only means of access. So, as I said earlier, I'm a blind screen reader user. Um, funnily enough, this happened to me yesterday. My screen reader died, and my computer just wouldn't speak, and I wasn't I wasn't able to navigate around or do anything with it. But luckily, I was able to get that solved with some help for today's presentation. Assistive technology allows folks to complete tasks that may be taken for granted. Things like checking the time and date. Somebody who is blind or low vision may not necessarily be able to see a clock. Um, Writing notes or reminders. I'm not pulling out a notepad anytime soon to jot down a note that bring milk on the way home because my partner says that that is something that needs to happen. And of course, it's helpful to some, but an absolute necessity for others. You may have seen things like the app Speechify, being advertised online. Yeah, it's great that you can go to your like that somebody can drive, on their commute and listen to their emails read out loud or whatever content they need to be read aloud. But that's a nice to have for them, right? But for other folks, it may be the only way they can consume that material. All right, screen readers. So a screen reader is a piece of software used by blind and low vision and others. Um, the misconception is that only blind and low vision folks use screen readers. That's not wrong. I mean, that's wrong. Sorry, that's an incorrect statement. Other populations use screen readers as well. Folks with cognitive disabilities, folks with dyslexia. So it has a wider application than you may initially think, and it communicates and translates to the user what is on screen and where they are. Screen readers exist on many devices: smartphones, household appliances, TVs. But the inverse is also true because they don't exist on many devices, or the means to access said devices are inaccessible. Household appliance apps. I'm looking at you very hard. You know, get that sorted, please. Uh, because there are these barriers in the way. That creates an unequal environment. So the inverse is also true. That yeah, they may exist on these devices, but many more devices do not have built-in accessibility solutions. Uh, Screen readers convey information through speech and also braille, and can also be paired in conjunction with magnification programs and other devices and software solutions. So, Sarah, if you could pause your screen share briefly, I will demonstrate just a bit how a screen reader may read some stuff. One moment here as I attempt to screen share. Oh dear. Um, I just want to be. That's a touch fast, huh? So let me slow that down.
Slower. Heading level 2. Heading level.
So I just want to preface before I read through this Google Doc that I have pulled up here. I am not a coder by any means. I can test for accessibility and my specialization lies with screen readers, but I'm not a coder by any means. However, good semantics for digital content really goes across all realms. So good semantics, you know about good semantics in with documents, then you can apply them to websites and vice versa, or at least you know the theoretical foundations for that. So I. I used headings and hyperlinks in Google Docs just to create this example of just um, unlabeled content here that will make no sense
From Sarah
to
Parker to everyone.
anybody who who uh who navigates, right? So let's listen to what Jaws has to say here.
Heading level 1. Heading level 2. Heading level 3.
So you just heard heading level 1, heading level 2, heading level 3. That have no labels. So what does that actually mean? Right? Nothing.
Link, click here.
Link, click here.
Link, click here. Link, click here.
What does click here mean? Absolutely nothing. Does it tell you did it tell you what you're clicking on? Well, a link. Does it tell you where you're going? Is it going to tell you, does it tell you what's going to happen when you get there? Tells you nothing. Click here is those are two very useless words.
Link, link. Link, link.
Link. Great. I know that's a link. But it's just as uninformative as click here.
Link, link. Heather Crombie has joined the meeting. Link, link, link. Link, link. Link, button.
Linked button. Now, this is I added this as just tongue in cheek because a lot of developers and designers style links and they call them buttons, or they style buttons, they call them links. So let's get those terminologies straightened out there. Like
New notification from
a link. Sorry for all the notifications there. A link takes you someplace. A button um, submits an action, creates an action. Now you may ask, well, a search button, creates an action, does something, but it also takes you to a place. Why is it a button? Well, it's a button because it activates the search button, but it also takes you someplace because it's showing you the search results.
button. Button. Button.
So this is probably my biggest gripe with a lot of mobile apps and just websites. Button, button, button. I don't know if any of these buttons do. And the cost of clicking on some button you're not familiar with, or you don't know what it's going to do, is kind of high. What if you click a unlabeled submit button and you just, gave somebody full access to an account that you didn't mean to? Kind of, that's kind of disastrous.
Blank.
And that's it from me. So I will stop my screen share.
Screen sharing meeting controls. Screen.
And Sarah will reshare, and then I'll pass it off to Colleen.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Colleen and studied assistive technology. So I'm going to share some of the other accessibility tools and considerations we need to look at. And one way to navigate your computer is just using keyboard shortcuts. And very similar to how it would read in JAWS or Navigator, you can still control your computer with a bunch of those commands. And for some, it might be their only method to access it, and others, it's their preferred because it's faster than going to the mouse. For fine motor purposes, some people might not be able to hold a mouse or manipulate a mouse or joystick. So keyboards shortcuts should be accessible on those pages, and they should be able to navigate through the screens to get to it. Next slide. A new cool tool that's coming out with all of our great devices is voice recognition within a computer. So using speech to control your computer, telling it to open and program an app, dictation, simply by your voice. And this could be paired with somebody who uses an augmentative communication device, that they could activate those commands through their AAC device and still control the computer to get to the pages they want to do. And Sarah, if you want to play that, how to use your voice access, it's going to show them just the basics in Windows 11. This is going to be also, there's probably a version in Apple as well. I just focused on Mac and on Microsoft.
Voice access was introduced in the Windows 11 2022 update. With this powerful feature, you can use your voice to control your PC and author text. And because it is a part of Windows, you don't need an internet connection to use it. You can launch voice access using Windows Search or from Settings. In the Start menu, select Settings, Accessibility, Speech, and then turn on voice access. If you want to automatically launch voice access, when you start your PC, select the box for Start voice access before you sign into your PC or Start voice access after you sign into your PC. Once you complete an initial setup with your microphone and preferred language, you are ready to use your voice to work with Windows and apps, the mouse, the keyboard, and items on the screen. Using voice access is simple and intuitive. For example, let's say you want to work with the nightlight feature in Windows. You can say Open Settings, then click Display or tap Display. If there is more than one option, voice access will display numbers to help you choose the option you want. In this case, you say 1. Say Toggle Night Light to turn the night light on immediately, or say click Night Light and then 1 to get to the nightlight settings. Once there, you can interact with the settings in multiple ways. You can say move strength right 20 times to move the strength slider and increase the nightlight intensity. Or you can say toggle schedule nightlight to turn scheduling on. Once you are done, you can say close settings to close the settings window. You can use voice access to interact with apps through familiar commands like Open, Close, Switch to, Minimize, Maximize, and Restore, and snap windows to specific spot on the screen. Once in an app window, you can use commands like click, double-click, or scroll to interact with controls. To focus on an item, you can say Move to or Focus on, followed by the name of the item. Want to pause voice access? Simply say mute and voice access will go into sleep mode. Say voice access wake up to turn it back on again. There are hundreds of ways to use voice access to interact with apps, controls and overlays and dictate text. Not sure how to perform the task you want? Simply say, what can I say? Or show all commands for a list. Before we wrap up, I want to mention 2 more cool things about voice access in Windows 11. First, you can create custom voice shortcuts for single actions such as opening a link or multiple actions performed in a sequence. To get started, activate voice access and say Open Voice Shortcuts. On the Voice Shortcuts page, say click Create New Shortcut to initiate the command creation. Give your shortcut a name, an action to perform, and assign it to a shortcut group if desired. Say click Save to save your new shortcut. This feature is available in English for now. We will keep you updated as new languages are available. Second, in response to your feedback, you can now use voice access across multiple displays. Visit aka.ms/voice access multi-display to learn how. With so many ways to use voice access, you may be wondering what's the best way to get started. Visit aka.ms/get started with voice access and use the voice access guide to learn and practice basic commands. You can also bring up the guide anytime if voice access is open by saying Open Voice Access Guide.
Thank you. So that gives you a brief understanding why would I want to talk to you about voice recognition. Well, there are many people who cannot use their hands. There's a whole wide variety of people. I don't want to classify everybody into one group, but if you, for some reason, cerebral palsy, you're bedbound, whatever it is that you cannot use your hands, the ability to still control and access that computer by giving it simple commands could make it much faster than using all alternatives that we're getting to of using a switch to control it, because that takes much longer to navigate through the sections if it's even possible. So as somebody setting up the sites, we need to make sure that we're testing, we're looking for those labels. Is that section 1, 2, your choices? Are they accessible? Can we get to them? So those are the things we're looking for. And on Lewis's link list that he demonstrated when he had link, this one being the blue highlighted how to use your voice access, he would hear it as link, how to use your voice access. And then I also gave a brief description so they understand if you click that link, what are you going to go see? Next slide.
I just wanted to mention there's a comment in the chat about how voice control is also available for Mac OS and iOS.
Yes, I believed it would be. I just really had not dug into that. And I'm sorry that I didn't do that for this one. Visual accommodations can help a wide range of users. People with low vision, autism, dyslexia, migraines, all sorts of people can use visual accommodations and things we're going to look at on websites. Are you able on that website to adjust the text, the font, the size, the color of it? And can we adjust the background for black background, white text, or any color background, blue and yellow text? Can we adjust that so that the preferred colors of that user can be accommodated? And I have seen, and I wish I could remember, but it was years ago, where we had the contrast in place, and then we get to a certain website and it just is glaring white in the face, and it's not that fun. And we really didn't want to stay on that website because it was just way too bright for the user I was working with. And then just to give a brief description for navigation purposes, visually and auditorily, the use of headers and kind of wrapping our head around what are those. It's a good way to think about those is your outline of your page or your paragraph or your essay, whatever it is, your content that's being created. So header level 1 is going to be like your introduction, your title of the page. And then level 2, header level 2s are the more main broad branches of that topic, and so on and so forth. Having level 3 would be subcategories of that. And if it's organized in a meaningful way, it's really going to help those users jump to those parts of their text or things they're looking at, because they can navigate by headings. Even on a side column bar, they might be able to navigate that way and visually quickly see them and jump through it. So those are very helpful things to consider, and not just making them look the same, but actually applying those headings. Because we can all make the top here where it says visual accommodations, size 20, 40 font, blue, much larger. But we want to apply a heading to that so that it is easier to navigate. And then magnifying websites. Can it be magnified? Can you zoom in on it? If you do, what parts of that page zoom? And I have found a few, and again, I don't remember, it was years ago, but where we got to certain websites and most of it zoomed and would magnify using zoom text, but some of it was just stuck being small, and it made it not accessible or useful. 2 examples of programs, but not the only ones, is Fusion and ZoomText. Apple has it built in, as does Microsoft has it built in to their systems for zoom and magnification, as well as color contrast and visual accessibility that way. And then some things I put in for your reference, but we won't go into them today during the group unless somebody wishes to see it. But an ADA resource, and this is the comprehensive guide and outline. I just copied this right from the site. That's why it's in quotes. It's not my words, not taking credit. But it's a guide and outline that shows how businesses can ensure their digital properties are complied with ADA. So given that this is for the testers, I thought it would be a great resource to browse through at your own convenience. And then the other one link that I have here is for typefaces, and it gives examples and explanations of how fonts should be and are accessible in ways also that they are not accessible. So really considering the website might look really pretty, but to many users, it's not even legible. So just a consideration to take if you become a tester is, can I even read the page? Is it accessible that way?
If I may interject here, just a note, if you are a tester and your designer is telling you that, hey, accessibility is getting away with or getting in the way of the aesthetic of the website, tell them to try harder.
You can still make it pretty and you can make it accessible. And then some more visual accommodations to consider. I have some more links in here for you to watch. Great user, great YouTuber is The Blind Guy. And he shares some settings that are already built into Windows 11. Many of these settings he's sharing are also in Apple in their version. So granted, I only showed Mac or Microsoft, and I'm sorry I did not add Mac. I can look at that for the future. But these are beneficial for many disabilities, not just low vision. I often, as a dyslexic, will flip my text to either a blue or black background with white text. I can read longer, less eye fatigue, and it's so much better. But
And-
if you do high contrast setting where you invert your screen, quick, easy command that you can, once magnification's turned on, you can invert your colors, invert your screen. I put a picture here and I'll just describe it for all users of what it looks like with normal color contrast, just a standard picture of a guy holding his hat and smiling. And that's normal colorization, any picture. And then if we invert the colors, the after picture shows it looking more like a negative, where he now has the black teeth, white eyes, and everything looks a little more creepy because it's a negative and not the normal look. If you invert colors, it does this on most websites. And I believe I did find at one point there was a box to say don't invert pictures. Just to keep that in mind, because even being on Zoom with invert, everything looks really like a negative in a Halloween special.
I'll also add here, like, even though we're talking about Windows, as Colleen said, but I just want to further punctuate the point. Accessibility is available on many different platforms. It's impossible to cover like all the accessibility settings, but if you need accessibility settings or you want to learn more about them, whatever platform you're on, whether it's Windows, whether it's iOS, whether it's Mac OS, whether it's Android, even Linux has a screen reader, for God's sake. So, look, even Chromebooks, right? Chromebox, right? So, look at the settings, do a search for accessibility settings or accessibility for whatever program or whatever OS that you're using, and you'll if you spend some time, you'll find some things. Can I guarantee you that all platforms are equal and all platforms are accessible? No, but do accessibility settings and considerations exist on pretty much all platforms? Yes.
And it really depends on what you want to do or what the user wants to do with the computer. And then determine, is it accessible in a way I can use it, or will it be easier on a different device? And it might just be go to a center like the Carroll Center and explore and learn before making a purchase and getting a device.
And then the quick plug, right? We Sarah, when Sarah introduced the webinar, there's the lending library. So if you want
Those two,
to
yep.
say you want to explore Android and all the accessibility features on Android, perhaps the lending library may be the resource for you.
Next slide. So a switch user. And I have an example of a switch up at the top of the screen, which is a classic Jelly Bean switch. It's just a red plastic 2-inch circle that can connect via AUX port through a box, but depending on where it's plugged into this box will depend on how it acts on the computer. You can have clicks, you can have more than one switch if you're capable of accessing them, or just one. But these would act as your left click, your right click, the enter, or to start and stop the actions. So a key in knowing, is the website switch accessible? Is it grouped into sections that it's going to navigate a larger region and then go into if you say, yes, I want this region of the menu bar, then will it go into the subcategories of the menu bar, so you can sort of tier down what you're looking to select. And as a user, this takes time. Each section has to read out loud to you as you navigate it. It's also going to visually highlight it in a square, and I have an example. It's on this one that I'll show you in a minute, but it's going to highlight those sections visually, as it also might announce them auditorily. Sometimes, and many times, it takes a user at least 2 cycles through the navigation to be, this is the one I want, because their reflex for actually selecting might not be quick enough to get it on the first try.
A term that I recently heard that I really like to use is the cost of repair, right? And that describes how much effort is it going to take a user to reorient if they did something, if they accidentally clicked something in the wrong place, or using a switch, how difficult how much fine motor control does it require for the user to accomplish their task or reorient themselves. And the cost of repair, when there is inaccessibility, the cost of repair is very high.
Mm-hmm. And for these users, this might be their only means of access, because it is so time consuming. If they could use their voice, they would. If they could use their hands to access a screen or a button more precisely, they would, because this takes so long that it's kind of okay, we've tried all accesses, this is where we're at. And this switch I'm saying it might be set up for your hand, but I've also had users who use it with their head, their knee, their foot. It's whatever body part that person has the most control over. And they make these as small as a little tiny finger. So if the person can only barely curl their finger, they could activate a switch. The example I'm going to play in a minute is that you can activate it with your air, and it's set up like a straw. So a puff, inhale in or inhale out, inhale and exhale, those would activate the switch. There's ones that are pillows, so if they're by your head, you're not hitting this hard plastic, they're softer, so you don't get hurt. Many, many, many types of switches, just depends on what that person is capable of. So if we want to play the puff switch, it's a very short video link, and it's just going to do a quick demonstration of what a puff switch is. It's only 45 seconds.
This is the sip and puff switch and all the components that come with it. Here there's a clamp so that you can attach the switch to a flat surface like a desk or a bed. And the mouthpiece is attached to a gooseneck, which can be moved into a comfortable position for the person using it. Lastly, you have a control box, which is what the Tecla Shield gets plugged into. The sip and puff switch has two functions which you can assign, one where you sip in air and one where you puff air out. This gives the user a truly hands-free experience.
So very quick description, but if you've never seen one or have heard of one, it's great. And here is a gentleman, he's bedbound, he's using his sip and puff switch, and it's got a computer screen in front of him, and it's going to highlight in bright yellow two sections of his computer screen, the menu bar on the left or the navigation choices on the right of his screen. And then he can navigate into those.
Sip and puff inputs are always available by default.
So it's turning yellow, now it's single switching through the menu bar yellow. He's on the right, top. So with very simple switches, he was able to raise his bed up using his computer. But it's for him, he can visually see it. It's not auditorily speaking, but he's able to adjust the height of his bed with the control of his computer, highlighting these bright yellows from left to the right, and he can control his environment. He has phone, computer, and it's going through a column sorting, and then
the autonomy settings may be selected from the main page by selecting settings. Once open, you can see the always visible side panel containing commands and functions for calling the nurse, stopping inputs, and system volume. The switch scanning menu gives the option to enable and disable auto scan, along with the ability to enable and disable audible scanning. The loop count is the number of times the scan will cycle through items on the screen before stopping. By increasing or decreasing the duration of the scan, the switch scanning may be fine-tuned for the individual user's needs. For example, we set the loop count to 3 and the duration to 2. The result, when we go back to the main menu and select Scan, is the left sidebar is selected, then the apps are selected 3 separate times with the menu area highlighted for 2 seconds each. This gives the user time to make a selection after visually scanning the screen. If the time frame is too short or too long, the settings may be changed appropriately. The audible scanning reads the screen selections to the user. When the left sidebar is highlighted during switch scanning, the computer says Controls. When the app area is selected, the computer says Main Grid. The row numbers will be read when highlighted, and the individual apps' names will be read when highlighted. Please note, some features may change as our software is continuously being improved, developed, and deployed to your bedside autonomy unit, so things may appear and act different over time.
That was just a brief example of what switch scanning is for people who may not have experienced it or seen it. And then another way to access your computer is using your eyes with eye gaze technology. Some computers and phones, Apple, totally into this, iPhones, they're all getting into this, and they have it, some already pre-built in. Or I have a picture on this page of an eye gaze bar that can be added to a computer to make it accessible. But you're going to use these eye gaze calibrated to your eyes. It can be one eye that it's looking at or both. And by looking and pausing on an item for a brief second would activate the mouse and click on that spot. So some considerations for an eye gaze user are the targets where they need to click to activate the link to the next page or to get it, the radio button hit, whatever it is. Are they noticeable, and are there other targets, other click buttons right near it? Or are they spread out enough? How do they have to scroll far down the page, which is doable, to activate it? But this is the last video I will be sharing. I know, sorry I've occupied all your time, but this is Tobii Dynavox, which is an AAC company. They make communication devices that also interact with computers. Just one of many companies, not trying to brand name anything here, but this is a person using eye gaze example.
Tobii Dynavox software is continuously improving, so there may be slight differences between the actual software and our training materials.
Control is an intuitive way of interacting with your computer using eye tracking. Designed for people with conditions such as ALS, cerebral palsy, and spinal cord injuries, Control makes it easy to navigate and control your computer using only your eyes, with complete independence. You might be wondering, how does eye tracking work? First, the eye tracker at the base of the computer sends out near-infrared light, which is reflected in your eyes. Those reflections are picked up by the eye tracker's cameras. Through advanced filtering and calculations, the eye tracker determines where you're looking on the screen, putting you in control. Tobii Dynavox eye tracking technology can track one or both eyes across a variety of conditions, having overcome barriers like bright sunlight, glasses, head movement, and positioning. Control introduces a concept called interaction first, which mimics the natural way you would use a computer with a mouse. This means you first navigate to the object on screen that you want to interact with by looking at the icon, and then choose what function you want to perform, whether that's right-click, double-click, or something else. To open the Google Chrome browser, for example, you would activate the double-click option. The gaze trace provides a clear visual of where you are looking on the screen. This trace follows your gaze, locking if a fixation is detected. This happens when you stare at one spot long enough. To unlock, simply move your gaze away. But to interact, select the activator icon to bring up the interaction menu. Let's take a closer look at this menu. Every time you select the activator icon, the interaction menu opens in the center of your screen, like this. Notice that a magnified image of the selected area is displayed in the middle, with the menu options surrounding it. This centralized radial menu improves eye tracking accuracy and efficiency. You'll find all of your main interaction functions in this menu, including double-click, left-click, scroll, right-click, click and drag, opening an on-screen keyboard, and adjust target for fine-tuning your initial selection. Let's watch how easy it is to use the tools in Computer Control to navigate your computer. Imagine you want to look up today's weather online. First, fix your gaze on the Google Chrome icon. Select the activator icon to open your menu, and then choose double-click. Now that your browser is open, fix your gaze on the address bar. Again, select the activator icon and choose Keyboard to enter text. Notice how word prediction makes this process easy.
Select Enter on the keyboard to start the search, and then close the keyboard. To scroll through your result options, fix your gaze anywhere on the screen, select the activator icon, and select Scroll. Look toward the bottom of your screen to start scrolling down. To slow down the scrolling speed, keep your gaze closer to the scroll icon. Or look up to go back. When you have found the website you want, close the scroll tool. Now fix your gaze on the link, select the activator icon, and select left click. Now you're ready to read the weather, and you did everything with your eyes. For more options with Control, simply gaze down out of the screen area to bring up the off-screen menu. Here you can access the App Switcher, enable continuous click, pause eye gaze, and even more, like adjusting settings and calibrating the software to your eyes. Control even provides quick start guides right within the software to orient you to all the controls available. All in all, Control provides eye gaze users with speed and precision, reduced eye fatigue, and more successful interactions. The bottom line is, Control allows you to use the apps you choose and pursue the goals that matter to you. Explore more about Control in the Tobii Dynavox Learning Hub.
So that is one example of many for eye gaze technology that's out there. Just to give a brief understanding of how it works. And then the final two slides, we have added various tools and resources that you can have to look up more information. I don't know if, Luis, you want to speak about any of those?
Yeah, I won't go into all of them, but there's a link to the web content accessibility guidelines, to several automated accessibility checker. Shameless plug. There's also a link to our the Carroll Center's screen reader. Wow, can't speak today. There's a link to the Carroll Center's Screen Reader User Tester Training Program. It's a program that is held twice annually. And it's a 5-week course that if you join, you get full immersion using screen reading technology and learning how to test for accessibility from a screen reader user tester point of view. And I've seen several names from previous cohorts. So thank you folks for attending.
And
Sure.
we'll open it up to questions at this point.
Yeah, I saw a question in the chat when we were watching the Switch example, I believe, Colleen. Do you know what operating system that was, and if does
So-
the operating system matter for in these cases for Switches and eye gaze?
It would depend. Most of them are accessible. For voice control, that one we saw was Microsoft 11, Windows 11. But for the eye gaze user, he was using a device like a Tobii Dynavox that has the built-in scanning ability, but those are mostly PC-based computers that happen to run like a Tobii Dynavox communication program.
So would you say PC is probably the most prevalent, and then it goes on from there?
It's a Microsoft of some kind. I don't know the operating system.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then we did see a comment in chat. Apple does have equivalent voice control access too. So, you know, some things are operating specific, and you'll have to do some research just to make sure that you're testing properly, or if you're recommending a solution to someone that it's an operating system that they're comfortable with.
And I know Apple is also putting eye control, eye gaze into all their new platforms.
Mhm.
On their iPhones with that front camera embedded. They're using eye gaze technology. I haven't tried it yet though.
So, Sarah,
Thanks.
any other questions?
I don't see any yet, but feel free to ask questions. You can do it in the Q&A section. You can do it in the chat.
Or even suggestions for what you want to see next time.
Going once, going
Last call.
twice.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions, but thank you so much for attending this training, everyone. You will receive a survey, and we would greatly appreciate your time to complete that. Your feedback will inform our future presentations, including decisions on topics to present on.
Mm,
You
And
will
thank you. Yep, sorry.
I was just gonna say, you'll also receive a link to view this recording as well as the previous recordings. And please join our next webinar, which will be September 11th at 2 p.m. on accessibility for designers.
And these slides were sent out earlier, right, Sarah?
They
Yeah.
were, yep.
And are they going to be sent out again, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So we please refer to the resources that that we included in the slides. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for caring about accessibility, and I wish every single one of you all the successes in the world to make the world more accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you.